Right now, somewhere in the world, a 2-year-old is having the most important day of her life. Her grandmother is visiting for the first time. Her parents are taking her to the ocean. She is tasting ice cream for the first time. She is laughing so hard she falls over. Every one of these moments is vivid, immediate, and completely real to her. In 30 years, she will remember none of it. Not a single moment. Not the grandmother's face. Not the cold of the ocean. Not the ice cream. It will be as if that entire day, and every day before age 3 or 4, simply never happened. This is one of the strangest facts about being human. You were a conscious, experiencing, emotionally responsive person for years before you became someone who could remember being a person. You lived an entire chapter of your life and then lost access to it completely. The question is why? Let's start with what memory actually is. Memory is not a recording. This is the first and most important thing to understand. Your brain does not store experiences the way a camera stores footage, complete, chronological, retrievable on demand. Memory is a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, your brain is rebuilding the experience from fragments, filling in gaps with inference and assumption, and updating the reconstruction based on everything you currently know and believe. This means memory requires infrastructure. Specific neural architecture that can encode an experience, store it in a stable form, and retrieve it in a way that connects it to a continuous sense of self across time. That infrastructure takes years to build. A newborn brain does not have it. Neither does a 1-year-old brain. Neither, in critical ways, does a 2-year-old brain. The brain region most critical for forming lasting autobiographical memories, memories of specific events in your personal past, is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is not fully developed at birth. It continues growing and maturing through the first several years of life. Neurons in the hippocampus are still forming new connections, still myelinating, wrapping themselves in the insulating sheath that allows fast, stable signal transmission, well into early childhood. But here is where it gets more complicated. The hippocampus is not just underdeveloped in infancy. It is actively working against long-term memory formation in a way that is completely unique to this period. The infant hippocampus generates new neurons at an extraordinary rate. This process, called neurogenesis, is far more intense in infancy than at any other point in human life. And the continuous generation of new neurons does not strengthen memory. It disrupts it. New neurons integrate into existing circuits, rewiring the connections that stored earlier memories. The very process that is building the brain's capacity for future memory is simultaneously overwriting the memories that were forming. Your infant brain was too busy growing to remember what it was experiencing while it grew. But the hippocampus is only part of the story. Autobiographical memory, the kind that connects an experience to a continuous sense of yourself as a person moving through time, requires something the infant brain does not yet have: a self. This sounds philosophical. It is actually neurological. The prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain responsible for self-awareness, for the sense of being a continuous person with a past and a future, is the last region of the brain to fully develop. It does not reach maturity until the mid-20s. In infancy, it is barely functional. Without a developed prefrontal cortex, an infant cannot encode an experience as something that happened to me. The experience happens. It is registered. It may even produce emotional responses, but it cannot be filed under a continuous self-narrative, because that narrative does not yet exist. You cannot remember being a baby for the same reason you cannot remember a dream you had before you developed the capacity to know you were dreaming. Psychologists call this phenomenon infantile amnesia, and it has been documented across every human culture ever studied. The boundary is remarkably consistent across cultures, across languages, across widely different childhood environments. The earliest clear autobiographical memory, almost always, falls between the ages of 2.5 and 3.5. The memories before that boundary are not fuzzy or partial. They are simply absent. What is fascinating is that this boundary is not the same for every culture. Research comparing the earliest memories of adults from different backgrounds has found that the boundary shifts by months, depending on the cultural context of childhood. Adults from cultures with strong oral storytelling traditions, where parents frequently narrate the child's experiences back to them, creating verbal records of shared events, have earlier first memories than adults from cultures where childhood events are less verbally revisited. Language, it turns out, is partly what makes memory stable. When a parent says to a 3-year-old, "Remember when we went to the beach last summer and you found that crab?" they are not just reminiscing, they are doing something neurologically significant. They are giving the child a verbal scaffold for an experience that might otherwise dissolve. The story told about the event helps anchor the neural encoding of the event. It gives the memory a structure that can survive the rewiring of growth. Children who are told stories about their own past have earlier, clearer first memories than children whose early experiences are not verbally revisited. This is why the same 2-year-old at the same beach having the same experience will have different memory outcomes depending on whether the adults around her narrate and revisit the experience afterward. Memory is not just something that happens inside the brain in isolation. It is partly a social construction. The community around a child is not just present at the child's experiences. It is helping to build the architecture that will or will not preserve them. There is one more layer, and it is the strangest one. Even the few memories that do survive from early childhood, the earliest fragment of an experience you can genuinely access, are almost certainly not what you think they are. Researchers studying earliest memories have found that a significant proportion of what adults report as their earliest memory is actually a memory of a photograph, a story told about the event, or a combination of the two. The brain has constructed a pseudo-memory, an experience that feels like a direct recollection but is actually a reconstruction built from secondary sources. In several studies, researchers were able to demonstrate that adults had confident, detailed earliest memories of events that family members confirmed had never actually happened to them, but that had been described or photographed in ways the child had been exposed to. Your earliest memory may not be a memory of an experience. It may be a memory of being told about an experience. The boundary between remembering and being told you remember is not as clear as it feels from the inside. So why does this matter beyond being an interesting fact? Because it tells you something about the nature of identity, the person you think of as yourself, the continuous narrative thread that connects the child in your earliest memory to the person reading these words right now, does not actually go all the way back to the beginning. There is a gap of 2, 3, sometimes 4 years of lived experience that left no retrievable trace in your personal story. You were a person before you became the person you remember being. You had experiences, relationships, emotions, and moments of genuine connection and wonder, none of which you can access, none of which form part of the story you tell yourself about who you are. The grandmother your 2-year-old self met and loved, the ocean you felt for the first time, the ice cream, the laughter so hard you fell over. All of it was real. All of it happened to you. And somewhere in the neural architecture that grew in the years immediately after, built on the very activity that overwrote those early experiences, is the person who cannot find them. You are not the first version of yourself. You are the version that survived the forgetting.